Welcome to the RollingThru Podcast. I'm Ortiz, a trainer, jiu-jitsu athlete, and physical therapy student. This podcast is all about bridging the gap between training, recovery, and performance through a holistic approach to fitness and health. Whether you're a combat sports athlete or just looking to move, feel, and perform better, you'll get insights from top coaches, athletes, and experts on strength and conditioning, injury prevention, and mindset. If you want to train smarter, stay injury-free, and optimize your performance, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Victor Altamirano.
Victor Altamirano.
Yes,
sir.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you
for doing this.
Of course. I
really
love hanging out with people. I love talking to people. I like, listening to what other people have to share and contribute to this life in general.
Yeah.
I think it's important to share, what we know and think what's going on.
Yeah. Easy one to start with. If you can introduce yourself to the listener, sharing anything that you think would be relevant to help someone that has never heard of Victor Altamirano before get a better understanding of who you are.
Well, I'm Victor Altamirano. I'm a former UFC fighter and a lifetime martial artist. And that's basically most of my life and the reason why you're here.
That's partially true. Yeah. That's the reason I knew who you were whenever I first saw you, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that you remember, but I think it's a funny story, so I'll tell it.
Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I was at Smolik's Smokehouse in Mathis, Texas. Great restaurant. I'm sure you think it's great too.
It was
right?
good.
Yeah, it was good.
I don't usually eat chicken at barbecue joints, but that chicken was good.
Yeah.
That was good chicken.
And I'm there, and it was New Year's Day, about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I was heading back to school, and I see this family come in, and they go through the line, they're ordering, and I see this gnarly cauliflower ear walk by me. And that was the first thing I saw in you, and I was like, oh, that guy trains probably a lot. And then I see your face, and I was like, you're kind of familiar, and I couldn't really piece together who you were. And then I thought back to fights that I've watched over the past 6 months, and I remembered you from your Tim Elliott fight.
Oh yeah, Tim.
I remembered you from your Tim Elliott fight, because that was the time that, I think that was Tim Elliott's first fight after that whole thing with his trainer and ex-wife at the time, which is a crazy story in its own. I think that's why I tuned into that fight night, because I was like, let's see what Tim Elliott's doing. And then I was like, oh, he's fighting this Mexican fighter, and I think I told you whenever I introduced myself to you, I like to follow a lot of the Mexican fighters.
Yeah.
So then that put you on my watch list mentally, and then I realized who you were there in that Smolik's, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hate myself if I don't go talk to him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, but he's with his family. I can't just go to their table and interrupt their lunch or dinner or whatever it was. And then you got up to go back to order something, and I was like, all right, it's time to go bother him. So I stood up to follow. Yeah, the peach cobbler is good. Mm-hmm. Their dessert is as good as their barbecue, I would say.
Yeah, it was really good.
But yeah, I went up and bothered you for a little bit, and you were nice enough to entertain me in my thoughts. So thank you for that.
It was great. Of course, I like it. It's really important for really artists, and martial arts being one of these many art forms that we know there's contribution from our behalf. Whether it be coaching or whether it be watching the fights, but whatever inspires people to continue doing whatever it is that they want to do. And I think that's something that musicians, painters, sculptors, they just want to ignite something in people and remind them that they can do that. They can really do whatever it is that they want to ignite someone else with.
Yeah, and so to backtrack a little bit, yes, you are right, and that you introduced yourself as the former LFA fighter, former UFC fighter, LFA champ, by the way, too, right? LFA is not a promotion to scoff at. I believe LFA, I know for a fact, LFA has produced a lot of machines that have gone into the UFC and dominated.
Brandon Moreno was in it. Pantoja was in it. Alex Pereira was in it.
LFA, good promotion. Pantoja's former champ, or current champ. But yeah, so yes, that is how I recognized you. That is how I knew you at that moment. But then I was able to kind of take a more deep dive into who was Victor Altamirano after that.
Yeah.
And the way you introduced yourself was a lifelong martial artist. And I think that's very interesting, kind of admirable in that, Phil DeRue, friend of the show that we had on last week, talks about how the way you communicate with different fighters, or how he communicated with different fighters as a coach. There was a couple different kind of archetypes for fighters and for people, and it's some
what
people.
Are they?
So let's see if I remember them. Some people were like being the fighter, and that was kind of like the Mike Perrys of the world. I don't know if you're familiar with Mike Perry. The athlete, who was kind of like the Tyron Woodleys of the world, that kind of typically tend to be wrestlers that are just athletic freaks that would dominate any sport. John Joneses of the world, right? Kind of not protege, but like the young, they're always very high potential. We'll say,
high potential.
And the other one, there probably was more, but the other one of note was the martial artist, and that's kind of your GSPs, the guy that even post-career is still treating it as this skill acquisition, this constant, lifelong journey of developing this skill and this talent, and having value in that and not as much value in the wins, losses, highlights, career aspect of it. And I think from what I've heard you talk about, that's kind of how you approach a lot of your life, is with that martial artist mentality of the constant acquisition of skill and the constant acquisition of knowledge.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going on this long tangent with it, but if you have anything to add to how being a martial artist has affected your life, outside of being a professional, obviously, but just being a martial artist and the skill acquisition of it.
It's definitely a constant reminder of how important practice is in every aspect of your life. It could be anything. He's like, man, I'm not really good at my cardio. It's like, well, you just gotta practice cardio. You're not really good at parallel parking. You just gotta practice parallel parking. You very seldom and very rarely is somebody good at something they don't practice. And so martial arts has taught me that you can't expect great things out of you if you've never practiced them in any way, shape, or form. You can't expect to have patience for yourself if you don't have patience when you wait for your coffee to brew, or when you are at the gas pump, or when you're about to pay and you're in line and you just hate waiting. Those little things, those little opportunities to practice whatever it is that you want to get good at. You have to practice, you have to take it, And I noticed that a lot of people, I know that sometimes even myself, I forget to practice. I forget to practice these things. I get stressed out when I'm in traffic, or I begin to get stressed out instead of just enjoying the present and where I am. And I begin to think about what I got to do the next day, so forth and so on. And then I forget to just be happy where I am. But that alone, again, is a practice. You have to practice doing what you want to get good at. And I think that is something that martial arts and music has taught me a lot, is you have to practice whatever it is you want to be good at. You can't expect to be good at it, and you most definitely shouldn't beat yourself up about it if you're not good at it, and then you look back and you're like, oh, I haven't practiced.
Yeah.
Well, then don't beat yourself about it. Beat yourself about not practicing, and then start practicing, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's like the fighting and martial arts in general, whatever competitive martial art you want to pick, they're always an example of, you can't fake being a martial artist, right? You can't fake being good at fighting, right? And sometimes a massive underdog will come out with a victory over just, you catch whoever the favorite was, right? Everyone's got a puncher's chance.
That's right.
But it's almost never luck. That punch never lands off of luck. That punch can land off of maybe the betting favorite just has this one fatal flaw with their guard, or maybe they fall for a particular feint in a particular way, right? And the underdog prepares for that moment, and it's always preparation, right? No average Joe has come off the street and won a fight and it been, I just closed my eyes and bit down on the mouthpiece and threw, right? It's preparation, right?
Yeah. It's even preparation of when to know when you can just close down your eyes, bite your mouthpiece, and throw. Like that alone requires you experience for you to know when it is a good time to do that, if there is.
Yeah. And you've talked about in the past how you like to be in the kind of being in the phone booth and being in the line of fire as it relates to striking, and how striking is kind of your favorite art. And you wouldn't, in my mind, I wouldn't assume that of you with the way you talk about being a martial artist and the like skill acquisition side of things. Because then kind of the biting on the mouthpiece and swinging and being in the line of fire, it tends to be like kind of like a meathead approach to fighting.
Yeah.
Right? And not to say you're not a meathead. I don't know how you want to take that, but you know, you seem much more thoughtful with the way you approach a lot of your life, and fighting is involved in that, right?
Yeah.
So how did the kind of meathead approach to striking, being that you enjoy being in the line of fire, you enjoy, you know, giving one to give one, or taking one to give one, I should say, right?
Well,
how did that kind of develop?
If your opponent is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that is also being diligent with their practice and their technique, and you know, doing what they're supposed to be doing, they will fire back. They will withstand the punishment, and they will, you know, attack. They will counter. They will give you back something. And when you're fighting, when you're, you know, on the cage or in the ring, you are both there because you've made it that far. You have to remember that your opponent at that level can withstand whatever it is that can be thrown at them. So now you have to embrace the fact that you will get hit, that you will have damage, that you will endure, you know, whatever your opponent's gonna throw back at you. Otherwise, it's not a fight. Otherwise, it's an assault, I guess. You know, you just beat them up and nothing happens to you. That's different. You know, if you're there because, you know, you're expecting a fight, or you're not afraid of the fight, or you don't care whether the fight happens, you're going to fight regardless, then you will encounter damage, you will encounter pain, and you just have to embrace it and say, well, I'm just gonna be here. I gotta enjoy being here. I can't just learn to be here, because if I just learn to be here and not enjoy it, then I'm gonna exit as soon as I have the opportunity to exit. But if I enjoy being here, if I enjoy being in the line of fire, and you know, and by that I don't mean just take punches. I mean, be in front of your opponent and make sure that you are there because you're also trying to land. Then if you practice that, then you get good at that. And you have to know that you're gonna take some damage. So, and learning to enjoy being there keeps you from bailing out. Keeps you from just saying, well, never mind, let me just exit. You know, because what if you staying there gives you a win? What if you were only able to land a knockout punch because you took a really hard shot yourself, and then right after they were open for you to land your finishing punch, right? But you had to take that one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's the difference. Sometimes that is where someone wins, is when they don't bail out when it gets difficult, when it gets painful.
Yeah, and I think that mindset is the difference, or that mindset is kind of hard to acquire, in my opinion, from my experience, I guess, being that I don't have that. I don't have that mental stand in the fire, you know, learn to take it because you might be able to win off of this exchange, right? Yeah. And that, you know, I'm a longer guy, and so I like my ranged weapons. Yeah. And then as soon as the distance is closed, I'm getting out of there, because it's like, dang, I can't, you know, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage when the distance is closed, right? Yeah. And part of it, I think, is just the fear of what is to come, right? The fear of, I'm so exposed in this, there's no way I can avoid damage right now. Yeah. Right, and so that may be the same for my opponent as they close the distance, right? But in my mind, it's, you know, I have, like you were saying, I'm not, I don't enjoy being there, so I do get out of there, right? And I get back to somewhere I am more comfortable, right? Whether it's in the grappling exchanges or at range, right? earlier you talked about, you mentioned music, and that is another cool thing you do, right? And that you're a cello player, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not a very common second hobby for a lot of martial artists, right?
I'm sure music is to some point, some degree.
A lot of them play the cello, you think?
Something, maybe. I don't know. I actually don't know.
I haven't personally heard of it.
No?
No.
Do you play an instrument?
No.
Any instrument?
No, I played the trombone in junior high.
Yeah.
But I had to. It was a school requirement.
Oh.
Yeah. So
you
outside
want to
of
do choir?
No, I don't think. No one's ever told me I have a singing voice.
Yeah.
No, I think if someone would have told me that when I was in 6th grade, I probably would have done it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not a singer. Do you think I'm a singer? Is that what
I don't know. But I know that you could not do band and do choir.
Yeah. No, I went to a small school, so it was band, and you had to pick one of the like woodwind instruments. Woodwind or like
brass.
Or brass. Yes.
You picked
I knew
brass.
that much. Yeah. It was either I had to pick between the trumpet and the trombone.
Well, it's not fun if they make you do it.
Exactly.
You know, so you probably didn't learn.
And I was good at it.
Oh, you were?
I was first chair.
That's really cool. So what made you get that good with something you didn't care about?
Because I'm competitive.
You're competitive?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I hated it, but I did it, and I was good at it. But you're good at it, and you enjoy it.
I don't know if I'm good at it. You know,
I've seen you play.
You heard it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, thank you.
As a average consumer, you're good at it.
Thank you.
Because my opinion means a lot, I guess.
Yeah. It means something, you know, I don't hear it. I usually don't hear it very often.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't play in public. Mm-hmm. I don't play out and about. I'm scared to fuck up.
On the cello in public?
On the cello in public. And like, damn, you know, get yelled free bird or something. You know? I don't, it's like, man, because I'm trying really hard.
Yeah.
I'm trying really hard, and I practice a lot, and it just doesn't come as easy to me as this does. So whenever I do something well on the cello, I'm like, that took a lot. And for someone to say that sucked, which I haven't heard because I don't risk it, then I don't know how I would feel. I'm like, damn. And then all that hard work that I just did, just, you know, came with that.
I totally understand why you feel that way.
Yeah.
And I, you know, earlier where I was talking about how, you know, I had these injuries line up, and, you know, I'm pushing back a date that I wanted to compete at, and you're like, oh, you know, why not do it? You know, you're trying to talk me into it. I think you'll kind of come around, but kind of come around to what I'm trying to say here. But, you know, you're talking about not wanting to play the cello in public out of fear of, you know, messing up, right?
Yeah.
And that's so interesting how playing the cello is just an expression of, we'll call it creativity. It's an expression of something, but we'll call it creativity. And so, are you playing because you want other people to like it? Probably not, right?
No.
No, not necessarily playing because you like the task.
I think that at some level that should become my goal.
Okay.
If I want to increase the level of my musicality, that has to eventually become my goal. Is to play so that it can be enjoyed, so that it can be contributed. And right now I play because when I was in middle school, I also did band, but I only did it because of the same reasons that you did. And I had this instrument, I played the saxophone, but it's not because that's what I really wanted to play, but that's because my uncle had one, and that means we wouldn't have to buy one. And so I just picked that because it was the most practical thing for me to pick for something that I had to do. And I never liked it. I didn't like it. I did 2 years of band, and I never learned how to read music. Not because I wasn't taught, but because I never cared to learn or anything. And as I grew older, I do realize that I do enjoy music, and I do enjoy, you know, the cello, the violin. I really like string instruments, and I always wanted to learn how to play it, but I never got around to it. I never ever got to pick the instrument that I wanted to play. And so I finally got a hold of one, and I said, well, let me find music. I found a teacher, and I was like, let me learn music without the pressure of earning a grade, passing a class, getting my credits, actually learning music. I have no pressure to do it, but now I know a lot about it. I know so much about music, and to a musician, I'm still a white belt. You know, I guess if you ask a professional musician, I'm probably still a white belt, but compared to what I once knew about music, I would think I know so much now.
Yeah, and the cello is one of those instruments that's kind of pretty to watch someone play. And that the instrument itself is kind of this beautiful, almost artwork. You know, it's not like you're playing the drums and you're just like banging something, right? Like it's this peaceful art. It's, you know, if you walked into the mall and went into the center of the mall and started playing the cello, nobody's gonna be like turn that shit off. Get out of here. It's, you know, it blends well. It's very peaceful. I'm sure whenever you gather the courage to go to your local mall and put a hat on the floor with a sign and a cash app and start playing, I think you'll get some tips.
You think so? I'll try. Maybe we'll do that today. I don't know.
I think they'll see your ears and realize.
Like, we should probably give them some.
Probably give them some money.
That'd be funny. I would try it. You know, I've been asked if I have ever busked, and I've never busked before. But there's really nothing keeping me from doing it.
You've never what?
Busking.
Busking?
Yeah, whenever you just play music in public.
Oh, that's what that's called?
Yeah, it's called busking.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, I don't. I'll see what I'll contemplate it maybe one day. But it's something that I also enjoy because it practices discipline.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be good at something, you got to practice it, and it's another way in which I can practice doing something that I don't have to do. I don't have to get good at the cello. I don't have to learn how to play it. But if I practice making sure that I do get good at it, I'm practicing discipline.
Mm-hmm. So, the whole being a martial artist and a lifelong martial artist, as well as trying to become a musician, not become a musician, you are a musician, right? A musician is, you know, just someone that's practicing the art of music, we'll say, right? So you are a musician. So, you're kind of in love with the challenging, giving yourself a challenge.
Yeah.
Right? Learning something new, giving yourself the challenge to, you know, the skills needed to acquire to overcome that challenge, I should say, right?
Yeah.
So, to kind of backtrack a little bit, you overcame the challenge of, we'll say, the martial arts side of things, right? Of having an amateur career, developing your pro career, fighting in the LFA, becoming an LFA champ, fighting and winning on the Contender Series, which is pretty cool. I always think it's more admirable, we'll say. I think that's the correct pronunciation. I don't know. More admirable for someone who has at least in the UFC, and you might disagree because you fought for the company. I'm simply a fan, but you see some fighters kind of get the privilege of not having to fight on the Contender Series, kind of get the favorable matchups, and have like a kind of artificial momentum behind their career that's kind of forced, right? And sometimes the fans take it and sometimes they run with it. And I think, like, there's some guys that are great fighters that have that, and there's some guys that aren't elite. Yeah, they're elite fighters. They'll beat the hell out of me. But
there's some that are good and are pushed out the way to make room for those.
Yes.
There's those too.
Yeah, and so I think it's, so like I was saying, right? You fought in the Contender Series, got a contract in the Contender Series. Get into the UFC, get your hand held up in a UFC octagon, which less than 1% of the world can say that they've done, right? And so I know whenever you were coming up, your goal was to become a world champion, to become a UFC champion. And so recently, you fight at UFC Paris against a Spanish gentleman whose name I'm forgetting.
Daniel Barras,
yes. And it was a good fight. And I remember watching it, and I watched it with my family because they were interested in wondering when the next time you were going to fight were.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's actually fighting recently coming up. And so I happened to be home at the time. I put it on the TV. And as little as my parents know about fighting, they enjoyed it because you're not, and you never were, a boring fighter.
Yeah.
You were very active. You were very, like you said, you were putting yourself in danger for the sake of trying to win a fight, but it also kind of also worked out for the sake of the fan being able to enjoy the fight, right?
Yeah, that's the most important part.
Yeah, right. So you do think about that as a fighter,
I do
right?
think about that as a fighter, you know. And, you know, individually, it is not very important that people enjoy it. But for the sake of the art and sport as a whole, it cannot continue if inspiration dies. Mm-hmm. So if somebody watches the fight, regardless of who win and lose, sometimes people don't remember who wins or loses. Sometimes people remember that was a good fight. I kind of want to do that, you know? Many people sign up to the gym because they watch they fight and they were just inspired to learn. And when they had never taken any classes, you know? And yes, it's important to win, very important. Individually, the most important thing you should do. And also, for the sake of, once again, the sport, it's important to make sure that, you know, you keep the captivation of everyone who watches, the people who are, you know, not really doing it. Because theoretically speaking, if everybody had a really nice 1-2, all professional fights would just be 1-2s. Why, if you're really good at that, why would you bother doing anything else? Why would you bother training or practicing anything else?
Yeah, and that exact example that you're using is kind of what is kind of going on around Sean Strickland right now. I don't know how much you pay attention to the UFC or other fighters or other weight classes, but you know, Sean Strickland recently lost to Dricus in a competitive fight, and it was an entertaining fight. But the lack of creativity on Sean Strickland's side was apparent compared to Dricus. And Dricus is kind of this madman that's got 20 different things to worry about with Dricus, and people can laugh at the lack of how pretty it looks, and people can poke fun at that, but it is effective, and he's a great fighter, he's a champion. And Sean Strickland is in love with the teeps and the 1-2s and the jabs, and not much outside of that. And he's gotten a lot of criticism lately from his own coach, even about, you know, the lack of wanting to learn something new and the lack of being vulnerable, and especially in training, right?
Yeah.
And expanding your repertoire and expanding your toolbox, we'll say. And people also talk about Sean Strickland's not the most entertaining guy to watch, right? If it's all 1-2s and teeps, right? And those are all very effective range weapons, but they're not fun. Right? Yeah. And kind of to relate it back to, or to localize it back to your career, you definitely throw 1-2s, right? I'm not gonna say you don't throw 1-2s, but you know, you come from a Taekwondo background, right?
Yeah.
And so like you very much fight that way, and that it's a lot of kicks.
Yeah.
And it's not like a traditional, you know, 1-2 teep, 1-2 teep, right? Like you're throwing side kicks and push kicks, and I've seen you throw spinning attacks, right? And it's entertaining, and it's an art. You're expressing an art that is very much a it's referring back to your training over like 20 years, right? And it's not you got into the UFC and now you're an MMA fighter that clinches and does wall work and take that. No, like you're still recalling on your lifelong martial arts journey, right? And that's beautiful. And that's kind of the whole foundation of which the UFC was founded on, right? I just went on a tangent there that was completely unrelated to the whole point I wanted to make earlier, but that's what came to mind just now. But yeah, you were fighting at UFC Paris, and it was a good fight. It was a competitive fight, and in my mind, I had it 1-1 going into the third, and you were doing a good job, if I remember, of controlling, working in takedowns. And as someone, and I know you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, but for someone that didn't, when did you start jiu-jitsu?
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
So obviously extremely skilled. 10 years is like the traditional like benchmark for being a black belt in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of schools. But for someone that didn't start with jiu-jitsu and kind of started with a striking background, and I don't think you would call yourself a striker.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Your grappling is not a weakness. Like it's not, I don't watch it and think like, holy hell, this, do not give this guy a wrestler, because then it's in his, and you see that with a lot of these guys, right? But yeah, you were like, and you've done this multiple different fights in the UFC, and I don't want to go fight the fight, but you work your takedowns in really, really well, and you were doing that at UFC Paris, and third round comes along and you're still doing that. I think you had landed a takedown the third round.
I just dropped him.
You dropped him?
I didn't land any takedowns on this one.
Okay. And did you drop him and get top position?
No, I dropped him with a spinning back fist, and he got out before I managed to continue.
Okay. And so you drop him, and then I think it was like under a minute left.
Yeah.
And then you get caught with, I think it might have been like an overhand.
It's 2.
It was a 2?
It was something with his right hand.
Yeah, it was, you caught with the right hand.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the stats of the fight, and I really never reference those in regards to scoring, because they don't really mean a whole lot. And the judges don't get a stat sheet, right? But it was the last taste that the judges had in their mouth before they got the score right, was seeing you hit the canvas, right? And you got it, like it wasn't like you got knocked down and covered up and were like just a shell. No, you were still there. Like you still had life behind your eyes.
All of those that connected, they were clean connections, but none of them put me in conscious or in pain in any way, shape, or form. If anything, they knocked me because they were hard shots, and they put me down because I was in mid-movement. I didn't get, I didn't get set down because my brain was shutting down. I got set down because I got caught hard in mid-transition of movement. So I was off balance already, and then I ate a hard shot. So I was able to pop back up immediately. I don't think I took any damage in that fight. Of course, you would argue that those shots are damage, but as far as me being able to continue with the 4th and 5th round, I would have easily done that. Yeah,
and I thought so too, because you kind of immediately showed life, and it had fight. Like it was never like you needed a moment to recover. You were immediately immediately defending yourself, and then immediately trying to be back on the attack, right? And so my point is that, fight goes to the scorecards, and you lose a tough decision, and the ball in another world, maybe that decision goes the other way, right? Or maybe you don't get hit with a right, and and then there was another fight. I think it was the fight before that against Felipe.
Yeah, Felipe Dos Anjos.
Felipe Dos Anjos, right?
Yeah, in Mexico City. About a year ago.
Yes, and that was a beautiful performance, and it was pretty textbook. And you look like that. I don't think Felipe Dos Anjos is watching this podcast, but
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
He can watch it.
He can watch it, but I think that's an example of a guy that is a great striker that has absolutely zero grappling, and it got shown, right? And I think you landed like 10 or 12 takedowns in that
9
fight.
takedowns.
9?
Yeah.
9 takedowns.
At 7,000 feet elevation.
Yes. And I think it was like top 5 at top 5 flyweight, most takedowns landed in a flyweight match, I think.
Yeah, I think the record is 12.
12. I think you were second?
Maybe.
It was close.
9.
It was
up
there.
It was pretty close.
And it was a great performance, is my point.
It was a great performance.
And you never got caught. You never took any damage. There was a moment, if I remember correctly, where you had just gotten out of a scramble.
I shot a takedown. I shot a single leg.
Yeah.
The wrong leg. Got my back taken, but then I got out.
Yeah. And then, it almost looked like you needed to catch your breath. Obviously, you're in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Everyone the fans need to catch their breath after standing out of their chair. And he kind of put a flurry on you, and it wasn't an effect, like nothing really landed necessarily.
Yeah.
But then you lose a controversial split decision.
Split decision.
Right. And
damn.
My point being is that the ball didn't bounce your way a couple times.
Yeah.
right? And I'm not bringing this stuff up to, I have a point here, is what I'm trying to say, right? I'm not fanboying here reminiscing over fights, but the ball just didn't bounce your way, right? And that's something that's out of your control. You went out there, and I'm sure when you think back on it now or in the moment, you sit down with your coaches and you think, oh, you should have, zigged here when you zagged, or you should have done this when you did that, right? And then there's always strategy into it, but the ball doesn't bounce your way. Judges score it for the other guy, essentially, and now here you are, and I think like a month after UFC Paris, the UFC cuts you, along with like 8 other fighters, right? And of the other 8, I believe you were the most notable name that got cut, because some of the other 8 were kind of, for lack of a better word, not at that level, we'll say, right? Like they just weren't UFC fighters, and they were never competitive in the promotion. You were competitive in the promotion, and earlier I was trying to describe, you've gone through this martial arts journey of amateur career, pro career, LFA champion, UFC. Ball doesn't bounce your way, you get cut, and you're 34, right? 34 years young, and for some people I know, like, last week we were talking about Kurt Holloway. I don't know if you know who Kurt Holloway is.
No.
He won the Ultimate Fighter like 2 years ago. But it was the year that they had like the veterans, guys that had gotten cuffed in the UFC.
Oh yeah,
being on the Ultimate
Fighter.
Was
with McGregor and
with Chandler. Yes.
Chandler.
Yes,
who took who?
As in who won the Ultimate Fighter?
No, as in which coach took which group?
Chandler took the vets. McGregor took the young guys.
Okay.
Which, in hindsight, the UFC probably would never do that again, because that was a terrible idea to get guys that have been fighting for 15 years, 20 years, versus guys that have been fighting for like 3 to 5 and like just started their pro career.
Yeah.
And no matter, I'm sure if we went and got the next hot young if we got the next young prospect, that was going to fight on the Contender Series and put him up against you or any other guy that is a post UFC career guy, they would have a tough fight, right? Because fighting is this skill development over life. It's not this, no amount of athleticism can replace the skill you develop
the experience
over life, right?
of everything, really, even the wake up, even the day of the fight.
Yeah.
Just being comfortable that day.
Yeah, and being able to live with the nerves of being there right in the moment, not being too big. But like I was saying, you're not 40, right? You're not out of your athletic prime necessarily.
I still feel great.
Yeah.
I feel wonderful. Yeah. I got good cardio. I don't have the cardio that I have during fight camp, but I don't get outworked by anybody.
Yeah.
I don't. I get held down if I have a bigger opponent. It's a little harder to move. They're stronger than you, but I can still outwork everybody in the room.
Mm-hmm. Good. And now you're cut by the UFC, and now you're here. And earlier, whenever I got here, we were talking about kind of what you have going on now and what your plans are next. And that was kind of a off-camera conversation. But now that we are here on camera, I wanted to ask you about it a little bit more and have you talk about it again, if you don't mind. But yeah, I'll let you kind of explain what you have going on now in your own words.
Yeah, well, I'm a dad, I'm a father, and I'm really enjoying doing that right now. A family, of course, demands a lot of attention in many aspects of one's life, and so I just want to make sure that I'm there for my children. And the only thing that will keep me away from my children is if I can give them a future, a good future. A future where they don't have to worry about, our resources or the things that they may or may not be able to do because of what we're able to give them or provide for them. And that's really the only reason why I would take time away from my children, is to give them more opportunities and more resources. And right now, I, as the person who I am, an individual, I would like to continue fighting. I would like to continue fighting in any promotion. And if I make it back to the UFC, that would be awesome. When I got caught, they told me, you know, I just needed to chain a few more wins and I could probably get back in. But that demands time, that demands, you know, not working, that demands time away from my kids, and not because I'm giving them resources or an opportunity, you know? At this point in my life, it's just very impractical for me to do this. And when I say impractical, I mean it for my family. I don't mean it for me. I myself and many other fighters will tell you that they have done very impractical things for the sake of their martial arts career. And they would do that happily. I've done that happily. I've quit really good jobs just so that I could train more, because I didn't really care about the money that I was making or the thing that I was doing or where that job would have landed me in the future. I cared about continuing my path to in the cage, in the octagon, you know, to be doing that. But it's not about me anymore. It's not just about me anymore. Right now, if I come home at midnight and I wake up at 6 a.m., you know, it's not just me. It's people I have to tend to. It's, you know, kids I gotta feed. I gotta get ready for tomorrow, making sure that whenever I'm not there with them, I very carefully choose when, how, and with who are my children going to be with. My wife and I have to make these decisions, and if it's not worth their better future, I wouldn't take myself out of that equation. So I do want to continue. I do have that urge, and I don't really have a reason to stop physically for myself as an individual. But in the grand scheme of things, as the responsibility and responsible person and father that I want to be for my kids, it's just not suitable, you know. If I could get a fight right now and they would pay me, you know, $30K, but I would get another fight 3 months later and whatever, then I would probably do it that. But it's not, it's just not lucrative. It's not lucrative, and it's not just me anymore. I can deal with not lucrative.
Yeah.
I can.
So you're referencing your family as the motivation behind putting your career to the side.
Yeah.
Right. And does that feel like? Obviously, it feels like the right decision. You would say, right? That you're at peace with that decision. I guess that is my question.
Yeah.
Like, are you at peace with that decision? Because you're saying that you still physically feel good, and you still have the fire to compete, but you're making an educational decision. You know, if financially, is that worth continuing, right? So you're making like the financial decision about it, as well as making the choice with your heart of, you know, you have your children to take care of, right, and your wife to be with.
Yeah.
But the fire's still there, right?
Yeah.
And so you're allowing the fire to be on the back burner, we'll say, to prioritize your family, right? And that's I feel like that should be every man's goal at some point in their life, to being able to make that decision, right?
Yeah.
Of prioritizing their children and their family. So as you are doing that, right, and you're still here at Double Five coaching, is that kind of what's next for you? Is it going to be coaching as you stay? I assume you're staying involved.
Yeah.
Your plan is to stay involved, right? Staying involved in the sport. Outside of your own training, is it going to be coaching, or is it just going to be simply?
Well, right now I am enjoying this. I am enjoying coaching. I am enjoying seeing those people who are still young and coming up and just now beginning their journey. And I'm really enjoying contributing to that journey of theirs and helping them as much as I can with what I have done, with what I know. And, you know, I'm I'm enjoying that. But we go back to what's lucrative, right? And if at some point of my life I'm presented with something better, not for me, but for my family, then I'm gonna go there, you know? I'm not trying to leave this place. I'm not trying to leave anything in particular, but I am trying to make sure that my children are taken care of in the best way and in any way, you know, not just financially, but also, you know, physically and spiritually and what have you. And if I'm not at peace with whatever it is that I'm doing, then I'm also not providing them with peace, you know. And if my wife is not at peace, then also she's not providing them with peace. So we all as a unit have to make sure that we are providing the best of ourselves and the best for them. And if we're able to do that, we're going to do that. And if a opportunity presents itself where we're able to do that better, there's no hesitation in taking it. Why would there be? Mm-hmm. You know, for now, this is what we're doing, and we'll just continue to be better at everything that we're doing. And if someone or something says, you know, this is how it can be leveled up, then we go to that level up.
You mentioned wanting to take care of your children, not only financially and physically, but, you know, maintaining their spiritual health. Yeah. And that's something I haven't heard you talk about a lot on your appearances on, you know, different podcasts or shows or social media. And I feel like for a lot of fighters or martial artists, or, I mean, you were a professional fighter. That takes a lot of spiritual strength to do that constantly. So there had to have been something there, right? There had to have been some kind of faith involved with that. So for you, what did you find faith in to help get you through that journey?
I don't know. You know, I think it varied from time to time in my life. Mm-hmm. You know, you know, everybody would always say faith in God, you know, but to some point, what else? You know, of course that by default, but then what else? You know, in yourself, faith in yourself, faith that everything will turn out right if you do what you are passionate about, faith in that you know that if you pursue what's happy for you, you will end up happy. You know, faith in a lot of things, you know, and it changes and it varies and it fluctuates. Aside from God, it's hard to have one consistent faith in something consistently. And once again, aside from God, it's just, you know, what is it that you're searching for at that moment in time? You know, what faith do you want for yourself? Because that's the faith that you should want to believe in.
Whenever you say that, you know, you said the default for most people is God.
Well, for everybody, you know, whatever religion you may have, you know, you of course have faith in God. Uh-huh. So when people ask me that question, or whenever I ask people what they have faith in, I don't want to hear God. I know God. Of course God is something you have faith in. By default, we all should. But what else after that? What else do you have faith in? You know?
Are you asking me, or you're just saying?
Oh, in general, but go ahead. What else do you have faith in?
Yeah, I think fighting in general is it's hard to find a good fighter that isn't spiritual in some way. And, you know, like when you think of the UFC and you think of the fighters that make up the UFC, you think of a lot of the guys post-fight, you know, giving thanks to Jesus and
or Allah.
Yes, and there's a lot of Muslims in the UFC, right? And those are kind of the two dominant, obviously religions of the world, but religions in the UFC. And both have created very disciplined individuals that have gone on to become great fighters. And for you, you're talking about having faith in not only God, but whatever you want for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. And so whenever you say that, are you meaning having self-belief? When you say having faith in yourself, as in like like whenever you were coming up as a fighter, and you were telling yourself, I want to fight in the UFC, or I want to be an LFA champion.
I really just wanted to fight. I didn't, at the very beginning, I didn't really have a goal to where was this going to take me. I just wanted to do it, and I wanted to be good at it. And that's all I cared about. I just wanted to do it and be good at it.
Mm-hmm. So was the faith, The faith
was in my training.
The
faith was in, I've done this so long, I've done this for a very long time, in a very intense manner. I have faith in my training. I have faith that the years I've spent doing this are going to be displayed when I show up, whenever I step in the cage. You know, I have faith that my discipline is going to show up when it's time to fight.
Yeah, so it kind of all just kind of ties back to the self-belief aspect of it, right? And the positive reinforcement, I guess, right? And there's been a lot of, I never really used that positive reinforcement, we'll call it practice, ever until, and that's because I have competed all my life in something, whether it was sports throughout high school and then basketball collegially and then now jiu-jitsu. It wasn't until I started competing in jiu-jitsu that I thought, oh, I need to do a little bit more to prepare myself, because it was like so different for me. It was, I didn't wrestle growing up. I didn't have anything compared to martial arts. So the fear of a controlled fight was very intimidating. So I needed something else. Like I needed some of those positive practices that you're referring to. But to kind of rewind back to my question over kind of your spiritual health, right? And that we talked about how a lot of the UFC is made up of Muslims and Christians.
Yeah.
And you talk about wanting to take care of your family and your children spiritually, and make sure that their spiritual health is well. What does that look like for you, and what does it mean to be spiritually well? And for you, as an individual, how is your spiritual well-being? How have you been able to maintain it? How did you maintain it while fighting competitively? And now that you are in a post-fighting career, that some people, whenever they are done fighting, and I know you say you still have it, you know, you still would do it if it wasn't for other things, but some people kind of fall apart post UFC, post any professional athletic endeavor, they fall apart. And I'm not wishing that on you. I'm not saying, you know this, right? You're a professional athlete, you know this. But I'm just referencing that as an example, as some people don't have the spiritual health, right?
Yeah.
So for you, how does that look? That's what I'm trying to say.
It looks like a constant pursuit of peace.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pursue that, you know? If you can get carried away pursuing happiness, and it's exhausting, because if you're not happy, you feel like you have failed. But, you know, happiness is special because it doesn't happen often. You know, it's special because it only comes after certain things have lined up for it to happen. I think that if we focus on pursuing peace, you know, just being at peace with whatever it is that we do or whatever it is that we devote ourselves to, I think that is how I see my spiritual journey, or my spiritual self. My goal is to find peace, you know? And I find peace in being able to contribute. If I can contribute to this world in any way, shape, or form, in a positive way, then I am at peace. You know, if I can contribute with inspiration to fans, if I can contribute with knowledge to students, if I can contribute with life lessons to my kids, then I feel like I have reached a level of peace, because I know that good has been spread out into the world, and I hope that good flourishes from within those people and they spread it out more, you know? And that's how I find peace. And the way that I want to show my kids to do that is by practicing it, and for them to see me do it, for them to see me not angry all the time or not frustrated all the time, for them to see me enjoying myself with them or enjoying myself doing something else even without them. I think that's how they'll learn it. You know, kids do that. Kids watch, they kind of see what's going on, and then they learn how to do it. You know, I remember being a kid and being stressed out, seeing my parents being stressed out, even though I had no clue what they were stressed out about, but I would get stressed out just watching them. You know, they would put you in the mood. I mean, think of when you're a kid, your parents, you spend a lot of time with them. So any fluctuation in their emotions is felt by the kids, by you if you are the kid. And so I just want to make sure that what they feel is peace.
You mentioned for you, what brings you peace is contributing to the world positively, right?
Yeah.
And I think, as an outsider, I think you're on your way to doing that if you haven't already, right? You've competed on a world stage and had a positive impact on people like me that, you know, watch you on TV and then see you in the real world, and you have a positive impact on their life, right? And by just being yourself and being kind and treating people with respect, right? And that creates a positive effect on people I meet, right? And you made my day, now I'm gonna go make someone else's, right? Now I'm gonna go treat people well, right? And then now you're here coaching and you're creating the next generation of jiu-jitsu competitors, or whatever they choose to do, right?
Whatever they choose to do.
And yeah, man, I think you're well on your way to bringing yourself peace, right? And how do you feel? I know you say that's like the end goal, right? Is to be at peace, and you're in constant pursuit of that. Do you feel like you're still? Is that still like the light at the end of the tunnel, or do you feel like you are there and the problem now is maintaining it?
And you know, it's a constant practice of trying to do that. You know, I'm taken away from peace at times by my actions, by my thoughts, by, you know, my words, and it's just trying to constantly reach it. You know, it's even when you reach that goal, that doesn't mean you can stay there forever. You know, things bring you out of there, things bring you back in, and so you have to be good at going back by practicing it. And at times, you know, sometimes I wake up and I'm not at peace. I'm reminiscing about the things in my life that I've done wrong, or the things in my life that I should be doing, and the things in my life that I could do right now and differently, and what have you. And that is something that I think everybody's constantly dealing with. You know, what is the next best thing that I can do? What should I do better? When should I do better? How should I do better? Why should I do better? You know, what's going to ignite and be the catalyst for me to begin doing better? You know, it's always these things that are stressing us out, because we're wanting to better, as we should. And it's a constant conflict. I don't think it ever ends. I don't think it should. You know, if it ends, then what else are you gonna, like, what else is motivating you to live a particular way if you're not wanting something in particular?
Yeah, and the thing you ended on right there was some people say whenever they get into trouble when they're bored, right? And that feeling of being stagnant can sometimes lead to bad decisions, whether it's bad as in, you know, when I'm bored I overeat, or when I'm bored I eat a lot, right? Or maybe it's bad as in when I'm bored I hang out with the wrong crowd, stuff like that, right? But yeah, I feel like the majority of the world would benefit from the constant pursuit of something. And I forgot where I saw it or who said it, but I saw a quote recently that people aren't on the world to be happy, but they're on the world to try to do hard things, right? And I think you're kind of, I don't want to say you're living that, because I don't want to say you're not happy, but you're doing some of the hardest things known to man, which is fighting another man competitively.
Yeah.
And music. Right. And I'm not even mentioning being a father or a husband, right? But being a family man and then having the pursuits of music and fighting, or just being a martial artist in general, a lifelong martial artist, those are your pursuits, right?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of brings you the
joy, peace.
The joy, and those pursuits, you have that, because your end goal with peace was being able to contribute to others, right?
Yeah.
And whenever you earlier you were kind of joking, but I think you mean it, in that your end goal with music is to be able to play and share with others, and have other people enjoy it. And while your end goal in fighting may have been to become a champion, now it is currently helping others, right? And their careers and their whatever path they choose.
Yeah.
And then being a family is obviously all about, being a family man is obviously all about helping others. But your end goal of achieving peace and helping others is kind of showing itself through all the things you have done in your life. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I think we, I don't know about other people, but I've observed people, and I think that we live the best, we contribute the best when we pursue what we think it's beautiful. What in this life do you find beauty in? Where?
As I've gotten older, every time I don't know why this is the first one that comes to mind, but as I've gotten older and as I go out in public and you go to AGBs or whatever, and I see like a young baby.
Yeah.
Obviously a baby is young, but I see a little baby, and with his parents or with their parents, and just that whole interaction, I see a lot of beauty in. And I'm 22, and I'm about to start PT school, and so I have a lot ahead of me, and I have a lot of life I want to live, and financially being more financially secure before I bring children into this world.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the first thing that came to mind whenever you talked about that, and that I do.
Being a father?
Being a father. I look forward to being a father, and I know the life that my parents and father have given me, and I wish to pay it forward, right?
Yeah.
And be able to do that and provide that for somebody else, and have a family like the one you have, like the one I was raised in. Being able to create that for myself is kind of what I see beauty in, what I see my end goal in life as, but on a more, I guess we'll call it, superficial level. With my career, I guess I see beauty in the I guess people in general.
Yeah.
With a lot of people I work with, and people I try to provide value in their life, because right now I'm a trainer, and then I am preparing for physical therapy school. But so on my daily life, I work with a lot of people that are beautiful in their own right, and that they're all very different, they're all very diverse, but they have their challenges that they're overcoming every day, and their thing that they're obviously wanting to pursue, and they're at the gym pursuing something, and they all have different avenues that they're wanting to improve their life in, whether it's, I'm preparing for this sporting event, or I want to lose this amount of weight, or I want to feel this type of way, right? And they all have their reasons.
Yeah.
But watching them and helping guide them along their path is very enjoyable for me. I feel like I'm providing them with some value, even though I'm being financially compensated for it. But the value I hope I bring to their life
In achieving their goals.
In achieving their goals is what's very rewarding for me.
That's really cool.
But yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've are in this transition period of going from professional athlete, professional fighter, to now putting your family first, right? And kind of being that selfless man, essentially. And you talked earlier about finding your peace, which is helping others, right, through all your other endeavors that you've done, and being a father, being a family man, and an athlete, and now wanting to be a musician. With that being said, as a gift to you for doing this and doing me the favor of agreeing to be on the show, I got you something.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm sure, do you read a lot?
I try to. It's hard to read when you have kids.
I know.
It's hard to do much things that require you to not move.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, I don't know if getting him a book is appropriate, because I know you're a kind of a busy guy and a busy body yourself, and you don't like sitting still to read. But so I made sure I got you a pretty copy so that it would look good on a table or on a bookshelf if you would ever do read it.
Yeah.
But I got you a copy of Meditations.
Marcus Aurelius.
Marcus Aurelius.
My second son's middle name is Aurelius.
Really?
Yeah, his name is Dejot Aurelius Raven.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we've been, my wife especially has been looking into Aurelius because she had never heard that name before I brought it up. And I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you've probably read the book. You've read Meditations?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I have not. Thank you.
Well, now you have no excuse not to read it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome, man. But yeah, I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you got to get going.
Yeah.
But again, Victor, thank you for doing this.
Of course.
I hope in whatever endeavor you choose, post-fight career, maybe you get back into whatever you choose to do. I know you'll continue to help others. I know you'll continue to spread your positive energy onto others and continue to help yourself find peace and continue your lifelong mission. But yeah, man, you've definitely helped me and brought me peace by doing this, and with your career and everything you've done, man. Thank you so much.
I'm grateful for doing that.
It was a great meeting with you.
Great meeting you.